Thank you for joining us. We are the Designated Pundits. We're here to recap, talk about Match Day 21, Major League Soccer. It's in the books. We have a great week ahead of us of soccer and celebration. Let's get into it. Thank you for joining us. We are the Designated Pundits. I'm Bob here with Scott, and we're here today to talk Major League Soccer, but not just Major League Soccer. We're here to talk about Leagues Cup. We're talking about the comparisons between Major League Soccer and leagues around the world. We're here talking about United States Open Cup. We are here talking about the CONCACAF Gold Cup, which is just right around the corner. So, Scott, thank you for joining us today. How you doing?
Oh, I'm good. I don't know if you just heard that. Something above me just fell down. No, I'm good. Had a nice, refreshing weekend. Can't wait to get into this. There's a lot of really good topical stuff to talk about.
Absolutely. And you know us, when it's time to make our game predictions on Thursdays, we do, a full form show. We bring up graphics. This is not one of those times. Today, we're talking about the games from weeks past. We are kind of spitballing. Thank you for joining us in this conversation. Make sure you subscribe. Find us on Spotify now with video, on YouTube, on your favorite podcast network. And thank you for those of us who are joining us here today. First of all, let's run through some of the games. We're not going to run on every game that we saw this week because there were so many, but we're going to catch a whole bunch. And that starts with our midweek drubbing. We picked up 16.39 units and we gave 5 of them back. So still plus 10 units on the week. You are welcome, America. We had a great week of gambling, all things considered. And we finished up at the end of this week with 26.13 units in the plus on 21 weeks. That is a fantastic betting average, even if it kind of ebbs and flows. And this was one of the, was this the flow or the ebb? I'm not really sure which way that grammar works.
I feel like it's the ebb because it's when things go back out.
Right? Or are ebb and flow just kind of like synonyms?
I don't know. It all works together. Stuff comes in, stuff goes out. We gave a little bit back this week. You know what though? Like all in all, not that bad. We missed on some games and stuff like that, but it's not like it wasn't disastrous by any stretch.
And you missed on the midweek show, but for the last 4 or 5 weeks, you've been running with kind of a new strategy, playing some good high odd bets on overs and unders when you find them, but also playing with teams to get shots on target. That has been fantastic for you. And our cover artist, Sam Surridge, 2 shots on target. One of them was a penalty goal. One of them was a big chance missed. And that's where we got to start today because that was probably the best game we had. We had Nashville to win, and we had Sam Surridge 2+ goals. Nashville ends up with 1.22 away XG, DC United 0.39 at home. Most of that on a Benteke miss on target. You had Lucas Bartlett there taking Hani Mukhtar down from the ankles. And one of the things that I wrote down, and this is like, I take my notes, but then there's some things that really stick out. Mm-hmm. Hani Mukhtar earned the penalty and did not take it. Sam Surridge took it. That is something we need to know for later on. That's something you need to know later on, especially if you're betting shots on target, right?
Yeah, or if you're betting goal scorers, that kind of thing, you could kind of. It used to be that you could bet on Hani Mukhtar because you knew he was going to take the penalties. So if something happened or whatever, but I don't know that necessarily Sam Surridge is the guy that is always going to take all the penalties. I still think Hani Mukhtar is in that rotation somewhere, but I think a lot of it has to do with how hot he is. Look, I can pull up the numbers here, but Sam Surridge has something like 8 or 9 goals in his last 6 games, right? And I'll figure it out what it is in a minute, but he's hot, and I think the team understands that, and I think that is what you're seeing. As long as he continues to be hot, as long as he continues to be good in front of goal, the team is going to reward him with those chances.
Absolutely. Going down to the chat, seeing someone say, I cannot believe NYCFC lost to Montreal. You're getting ahead of us. That is the next game we're going to talk about.
We'll get there. We'll get there.
One of the things that I saw here was a lot of frustration on both sides. A lot of teams taking shots from outside the box. DC
Mhm.
United only 1 of 7 shots on target. Nashville only 2 of 7 shots on target. However, remember there was a little in the chat controversy on what counts as a shot on target. So for the record, a goal is a shot on target. A goalkeeper save is a shot on target. A defender clearing off the line blocking a shot is a shot on target. Hitting the post is not a shot on target, and missing the net completely or a block further outside the box that's questionable is not a shot on target. In
Right.
an it kind of depends on what the sports books play, but it seems pretty standard that for the block count, it's got to be like a defender on the line.
Right. And for like one of the things you have to watch as a fan is there are shots that seem like they are on target from your camera angle, and the goalie goes down and the goalie grabs it and it looks for all the world like the goalie made a save. And they may not count because a deflection may have caused that to go on target, or it may actually be something that from the back camera angle is actually going to go wide and stuff, and so that won't count. So there are quite a few ways where you may think that something has happened and it really hasn't happened.
In the end, teams rarely have more than 5 shots on target, maybe 6 on a good day, generally closer to the 3-4 range. So you got to be picking like the best striker, or if someone important's out and a new striker's in, and you can get a good price on that. So really love what you've been doing there. Sam Surge earns himself the cover artist of this episode, getting the win and the 2 shots on target together. That is 1.4 units in the plus for the show on just 2 1-unit bets.
Yeah. I guess the tip that I would give is you're looking for teams where they have a central focal point. Sam Surge is a focal point for that Nashville offense. Stuff is running to him, through him. Joveljic would have been kind of a good one because he was a high volume kind of guy. But if you look at like Charlotte, for example, Charlotte doesn't necessarily have that same focal point because they've got like 4 guys that can score goals, and so they're sharing that load, and you're not seeing necessarily all the chances being created in a single direction. They're taking whatever the team gives them in that moment, and that might not work to your advantage if you're trying to pick a 2-shot taker.
Love it. Okay, let's move on and talk a little bit about Montreal NYCFC. We had 2 pro NYCFC bets and 2 pro over 2.5 goal bets. The final score was 1-0 CF Montreal. Montreal had 1.19 expected goals. NYCFC had 0.78 expected goals. Generally, those do go over the 2.5 mark. There are a few notes that I had here. For NYCFC, Wolf had 8 touches inside the box. That's kind of an ungodly number there. Risa and Bakrar both missed big chances, so we did have issues there. Eventually, the only goal was a rocket parried by the goalkeeper, but it was parried straight back to like the dot on the box, just outside the box. I think it was Victor Lattori put it in from there. And of course, NYCFC was not starting their lead goalkeeper because their actual goalkeeper was starting for the men's national team and had a fantastic game, one of the best ever. Probably wouldn't have spilled that ball. We'd at least be looking at a 0-0 tie, at the very least.
Yeah, it's a bad sort of block back into it's bad. I wonder too if NYCFC, maybe feeling some of their absences, because Freeze was not the only player out on international duty. I wonder if that plays into it. But overall, just very, very disappointing, I think, from that group. 11 shots, 2 big chances, 67% possession. Montreal's not a team that rolls over, but they will give you the opportunities if you're willing to earn them. And NYCFC is a team that can earn them and did, I guess. So the inability to make more out of that continues to be just, I don't know, disappointing to me.
Alonso Martinez was also out for NYCFC, and he scored on the U.S. men's national team, scored on a penalty on the U.S. men's national team on Freese. Looked pretty angry. Like he was not like friendly with Freese afterwards. He was all game in that one. Of course, you have Keylor Navas beaten beaten. And Freese guessed correctly every single shot. Me and Alex were talking about that. He dropped in the group chat like we did not know Freese had this in him. And to beat one of the all-time great CONCACAF goalkeepers, fantastic performance.
Oh man, we're getting away from NYCFC there.
We're talking about NYCFC players. It
But
counts.
It counts. I guess here's a question for you. Going forward, are you reevaluating Montreal a little bit? Because they have a home result now. And dare I say, Montreal 2 wins in their last 3.
Yeah, I guess you kind of have to. I mean, they have players. Owusu was fantastic, and if you looked at what he's done, I just really think he's playing really well. He had a shot later on in the 70th minute, a pass that he made. He made like a through ball chip like over a player, like kind of one of those up and down hit. I believe it was Vil Saint who put it on the keeper in the 70th minute, which was like an amazing performance. I didn't know Owusu had that in him, just like a little flick forward kind of through, when you're holding left trigger and hit triangle at the same time and, the ball goes up and back down. Yeah. I didn't know that was in his playbook. And if Montreal can get performances like this, 6 of 13 shots on target, they only had 33% possession, but it almost worked in their favor. They got guys like Sealy stepping up. They got guys, Tom Pierce was very involved, not always good. I think he led the game in fouls, might have led the league in fouls this weekend. But, Petrasso had a missed big chance. Owusu had a missed big chance. Yeah, I think that Montreal is no longer a punching bag. They're just a bad team.
Yeah, that I think that's where I land as well. They're not a punching bag. They're not going to roll over for you and be bad. They're still a team that has a talent gap though. And some days they're going to be able to show up and their players and everybody's going to be kind of on, and that'll be enough because they're still pros. They're still professional players. And I still think that a lot of them, if they weren't on Montreal, would be somewhere else in the league, but not starting. Right. Or starting in specific situations. But every now and then it'll click for them and they will put something together and they will like outwork a team or something like that. And they'll ride their luck and they'll get these results.
And they were missing players on international duty in this one too. I think that kind of gives us a little wild card, a little again with Toronto too this week. When you're missing this many starters, it kind of gives a question mark. But when your team's bad and you're missing a lot of starters, it doesn't mean your team gets worse. Like your team could get better. There could be chemistry. There could be another guy on the bench just waiting to take his opportunity. And that might be what we're seeing now. I did not expect NYCFC to be shut out. That would have been shocking to me. And as much as they controlled play, Montreal looked very formed on defense. We weren't giving a lot of space. They weren't, apparently except for Wolf, who was just tiptoeing wherever he wanted inside the box. It was kind of a bend don't break kind of thing. And I was very surprised. Now, this wasn't a game that had a lot of my interest, but on the rewatch is like the first one I wanted to go to because of how many bets we lost on this pick. But yeah, exceptional game for Montreal. And again, they are no longer, who are they playing? We're going to bet the other team to score 2. They are not that team. And they really haven't been. If you look at their losses, same as Toronto, I think you'd find a lot closer results than you might expect, like remembering back on them. And I think that reevaluates things. I mean, maybe NYCFC missing their goalkeeper and their striker should not have been bet against this team. And I think that is a note we need to make moving forward.
I in a lot of ways, I still think like the over 2.5 that Dion and I went with, I think there's an element to that I still felt comfortable with, because if New York City FC had only lost their striker, I'd have been like, okay, your ability to score goals is a little bit compromised, but you lose your goalie, and I'm like, okay, your ability to keep balls out of the net has been compromised. This game is probably going to be more open. You might concede goals you wouldn't have otherwise conceded. So the over 2.5, like I could still argue that.
I could too. I see what you're saying.
So there's an element there. I hindsight is 2020. You're right. this went 1-0. Maybe it being in Montreal is the deciding factor there. But I'm almost like, okay, what about Montreal? Like, why didn't they get a second goal? All it takes is NYCFC to get lucky one time.
Again, I think the defenses were collapsing. Now I'm using like hockey terms. In hockey terms, like a collapsing box is like when because you have 5 players, they're around the goal, and as the defense comes, they just shake that. They don't press up to the points. They let you pass the ball around up there, but they collapse in front of the goalie. It's kind of exactly what I saw going on with these defenses, which is why there's so many block shots, so many shots from outside the box, and all these things. It's definitely in the reevaluate for sure. Do you think you made a bad bet looking back?
I think I underestimated the effect that losing Martinez would have on NYCFC's offense.
That's about how I feel. I still don't think they were like terrible bets. I could tell you about a terrible bet.
I don't think it was a terrible bet, but I do feel, I feel like I underestimated that. And so I probably would take that element of it and evaluate it a little differently.
Now, when we're betting overs and unders, these things are fluky, but we have so much statistics here with 20 games already before match day 21. We know what the trends are. The trends were Revolution not conceding, especially at home. Colorado Rapids not scoring on the road. Very low games between the two of them. I took the under on 2.5 goals. And sometimes like losing a bet is like devastating with the last minute. This was 3-3. This was 6 goals. I lost by 4 goals. Completely had this one misstyled. Starts out with Calvin Harris, and then you had Navajo from Darren Yapi, and then you had Colorado Rapids actually going up 3-0 in the 55th minute with DiPietro from Yapi again. And then as weak as that Colorado Rapids lineup looked, like when I saw the score sheet, I'm like, oh, this is not good for Colorado Rapids. I'm very comfortable with New England. They gave it all up. They from the 58th minute on, there were 3 unanswered goals by the Revolution: a Sam Vine's own goal, Carl's Hill penalty, and Urruti from Tanner Beeson, like at the death, like the last final cross into the game.
90 plus 3. Oof.
Rapids end up with only 0.8 XG, 3 total goals on target. The ref blew the whistle in the middle of a Revs attack, which I found strange. Was the second time I saw that on Saturday night. The first was the Red Bulls game, where Carl, I'm going to say the wrong coach's name, Sandra Schwartz, blew his lid and got a second red in 3 games. Yeah, so I'm sure something's coming for him, the ultimate frustration. But yeah, Revs would be a lot better if they didn't have these like momentary collapses where they needed to catch up 3 points. But has any team like come from 3-0 down more times this year than the Revs?
That would be a stat.
Like 2? I think that's the most.
That's probably the most. I can't imagine there's that many of those out there. This one, in the conversation we were just having, I don't think this is a bad bet. Colorado is not a team who scores that many goals. New England is a team whose defense is generally better than this and has been generally better than this fairly consistently all season. This is a fluke.
Yeah. It seems like everything here is against what it could be. There's no reason for this. There's no reason for this.
You scored 3 goals off of less than 1 XG. I know it happens. I understand how XG works. Like I get it, but really?
And 28% possession for Rapids. Revs had 72% of the ball. Like that's numbers that I have not seen yet this season, like total domination. And yet here we are talking about a 3-3 result that New England had to come back from being down to even get to. I did notice there was a Chankalai injury. I'm going to kind of keep an eye on that for the future, because that's what's one of those players who's had those injuries issues in the past. Overall, a little disappointment, but it is what it is. I think we could safely move on.
Yeah. I think the only thing is I will continue to pull out the stat that like the average MLS game is an over. The average
Yeah,
MLS
two and a
game.
half is almost out of play. 3.5 is really the total you're going to need if you want to make some money on this for the over. But
It's starting to be a
betting
problem.
unders is still very predictable. It's still very predictable in the most. It just minus not this week.
just not in this game. But there
We
were
got
plenty of other games that went the under.
Rapids Galaxy last week. That was one of my best bets of the week.
Yeah.
And the both teams to score now. Okay, moving on. Red Bull. I was there with Sir Alex. Emil Forsberg, 11th minute goal, then 2 unanswered from Minnesota in the first half. You had a 20-minute Wesselsfield injury. That was actually trying to foul ECM. Choupo-Moting had this like weird dish off where like the ball came out and rolled to Emil Forsberg, and Emil Forsberg plowed it home. It would have been a penalty because Choupo-Moting was fouled by Wesselsfield and also fouled by the defender who I think is the one who caused Wesselsfield to like become injured. Like there were just everyone racing to foul a player in the box at the same time. Ball triggers away. Emil Forsberg puts it home. Choupo-Moting does get his 90th minute goal to tie this game at 2 apiece. My bet was Red Bull's team total at over 1.5 because Minnesota plays really well sometimes, and that's exactly what they did. Alex Smear had an error leading to a goal taking place for Wesselsfield. So Minnesota United playing well on offense, but their goalie situations got to get sorted out, because how many times in a row can we talk about these Minnesota goalies not performing?
They need Dane St. Clair to come back. Like
fair. Yeah.
Yesterday. Right. That's the interesting thing actually, is like when you have a number one that is as consistent and is as good as Dane St. Clair is, sometimes it's hard to have a decent guy behind him because that guy knows he's not coming through. Dane St. Clair is not at the end of his career. He's in his prime. He's going to be in his prime for a long time. There's nothing in his game that's like, yeah, this guy's going to lose his spot. Maybe he's not the best with his feet, but Minnesota doesn't really seem to care. So if you're a really good goalie and you're a number two and you're the kind of number two that could step in and steal a number one spot, you're not hanging around in Minnesota.
Yeah, I do see what you're saying there, but knowing that you have a guy who's going to be out on international duty every single time his national team plays, a guy who's had injury history in the past, I mean, how hard is it? Just pull someone out of retirement. What is Luis Robles doing? Just hey man, we need someone competent to sit back and get the goalkeeper's coach, put gloves on, get in the net. Like I want to see something different than this, because
that's fair.
That's points dropped.
That's fair. That's fair. I think that's on the Minnesota front office to be grown-ups in the room for a minute and say, yes, Dane St. Clair is going to go on international duty a lot. And we need somebody who will come in and provide a high level without being upset when Dane St. Clair comes back and takes his spot back.
Absolutely. Couldn't agree more. However, all that was overshadowed by Sandro Schwartz getting a red card. In the 95th minute, Red Bull took control of the ball, and it was like one of those cases where like there was like a bad back pass at midfield. Emil Forsberg jumps on it. He starts running the other way, and there are two guys running, and they're going to be past the last defender back at midfield. So he has two lanes to choose from. Either one will be a chance on target. The ref blew the whistle. Emil Forsberg looked surprised, like you can't do that here.
He's surprised because he's in the flow of things. He's not looking at the clock, but the ref has indicated a minimum of 4 minutes, and 5 minutes had already played. So the ref is in his right. He blows the whistle. I looked at this. I stopped it when he puts his arm up and blows the whistle. I waited for the sound, so I'm actually like behind it. Emil Forsberg is barely leaving the defensive third with the ball at that moment. The runners to the left and to the right both have a Minnesota player even with them. Those two guys, when they hear the whistle, they stop running, right? So at the end, when everybody hits midfield, there's only one defender back. It looks worse than it is because the whistle's already gone and those guys have stopped running, the defenders.
But I think something more though is that
even. I guess my point is, and I'm not saying the ref is right or wrong here, But my point is that the end of the situation makes it look worse than it was at the moment that the ref blew the whistle. The ref blows his whistle really quickly after Emil Forsberg gets the ball off of the clearance or whatever it was. And Emil Forsberg is not, he's not in the offensive half. It's not this like breakaway that's like
it is imminent. It's imminent.
No, it is, but it's not crashing in on goal. It's still well inside of his own half. That's the point. When the ref blows this, it's well inside his own half.
And I don't think that it was such a bad call by the ref as much as it was a night of bad calls by the ref. The 20 people from Minnesota who showed up in the game, fantastic support traveling from Minnesota to New York on a 90-degree Saturday. Absolutely not a fun time to be there. We're all chanting about the ref. Like, it was so bad on both sides. It wasn't even, I think Red Bull got much worse calls, but there was one time in the first half, I think it was like, I don't even remember who started at left back. Valencia, one of those guys. He like bear hug on the attacker from Minnesota, spun around with him, and they both fell to the ground together. No call. Like, the ref thought he was like doing a CONCACAF match, just letting every single thing play. There were 2 times Red Bull players went down in the box. I don't know that either one of them could have been penalties, but the ref get up and not looking, like just not looking at the player falling down, not looking in the booth. There were a couple decisions that could have gone to VAR. None of them did. It was frustrating over and over and over. Sandro was on a yellow, and at the end of the game, he ran onto the field yelling at the ref. Security got to him to separate him from the ref. He got a red card. I don't believe it was even a second yellow. I think it was just a straight red.
Straight red, yeah.
And he'll be missing another match. So 2 of the last 4 matches. Now, here's my question for you. One of my favorite baseball teams, my favorite baseball team, the Atlanta Braves. We had this coach named Bobby Cox. Back in the day. Do you know anything about Bobby Cox?
No.
He's one of the most winning coaches in MLB history
Awesome.
Because he coached that Braves team with like the best pitchers in the world, Maddox, Glavine, and Smoltz, and like very defensive oriented. And he was like a manager's manager. He would do weird things. He would take, a right-handed and a left-handed relief pitcher, put them both in. And like when the lefty batter came up, instead of subbing him out, he'd just go play left field for a couple minutes. Like, he would do these really creative things to, so you can reuse the same. Excellent coach, Hall of Fame coach. He also holds the record for being thrown out of the most games. And it's not by a little. It ended up being like a game every like 20 days that he was thrown out of, because he would, and these are the old days where like you had to actually like get in the ref's face, like
you really had to
coming out of your mouth to get thrown out. Now you argue a ball and a strike and you have to sit.
Yeah, it's the umps are soft these days. It's hard to watch baseball sometimes.
I think it's completely unwatchable, but that's not the point at all. The point is,
bring it back to Sandro Shorts.
Getting thrown out sometimes gives your team like a little boost. It's like a rallying cry. Like, someone's fighting for us. Someone hears us, and this guy's going to do it. Sandro Shorts getting thrown out of a game, I don't think that is terrible. At the end of the game, like, okay, maybe 5 minutes earlier, he could have like given them a little juice. I really want to know what's going on in the locker room. And if the Red Bull fans, I mean, it seems like everyone's still supporting Sandro even through this, but at the same point, like, you need your coach once in a while too.
You do need your coach once in a while. I do think I liked kind of what Sandro Schwartz said at the end of the game. I don't super love necessarily coaches running out the way that he did to confront the referee. There's something in that I think is generally probably bad for the league. But he was asked about it, and he was like, I can't criticize the refs. What do you want me to say? Like, I went out to tell him he did such a good game, like great calls or whatever. Like, there is something in there that is very malicious compliance that I do love. And I those are moments that the fans can sort of get behind, the players can get behind. It reminds me of another former Red Bull guy, Mike Petke, who went to RSL and had a moment where he, lost it at the lack of calls that his team was getting. And he had the communications guy passing out printouts of a foul of Joao Plata being put into a headlock. And that is a thing that, pass him out, Trey. That is a thing that lives on in the fan base. And Petke, despite the way that he sort of ended up leaving, not in a good way, but that moment still lives in the fan base. Everybody loves it. The players at the time loved it. It was this thing that kind of needed to happen. And I think there are these moments too that like the league needs and the refs need. Like there has to be this moment of like, there are consequences. You can come out and set a consistent line, but if your line is in a bad place, if you are letting stuff go that is bad for the game, it's bad for player safety or whatever, like it's too inconsistent with what other officials are doing, right? You are not immune from these consequences. And I think that's good for the refs and the league to hear.
Absolutely. Now, I also think it kind of brings a little heat down on the ref. Like the league is going to back them, and the ref union is going to back him 100%.
Sure.
But it also kind of draws your attention back to the ref for his next game for a little bit too. So I do think there's a little hot seat there, and his match rating is not going to be good. I can tell you that right now. It was a terribly officiated match, way too much let go, and it did become a player safety issue in my opinion. It's worth noting that Red Bull's assistant coach now was the coach of the Red Bull 2 team for a very long time. He knows everyone on the staff. He is very well liked. He was a very good player. Ibrahim Sakagia, great player. He's like one of those underrated, like real heads up guys. And he actually got replaced by Michael Bradley, who's now coaching Red Bull 2.
It's kind of a fun thing. Last thing on the ref thing, you remember earlier this season, there was a ref named Sergey something or other who had a bunch of bad games in a row.
Yes, I do remember that.
Do you remember that?
For the sake of this conversation, yes, I do remember
that. He had a bunch of bad games in a row. There was quite a lot of controversy around him for a while. He had a really bad one. The last kind of bad one in a row was an RSL game. Maybe that's why that sticks out in my mind, but he had several of them in a row. After that, he had a game as the video review official. And since then, I have not heard his name at all. So there is something behind the scenes that is happening there. I know there's quite a lot of accountability. I've been around professional officials. I've seen how they work. I've been around the assessors that talk to them and stuff like that. They have really high standards. I know there's stuff going around in the background. This kind of stuff matters though, because it does raise that level, and those conversations, I really genuinely believe those conversations do happen. And sometimes we don't get the the justice that we think we want. We want to see guys, hanging by their toenails or something, but but those training and re-education moments, the pulling the tape and being like, no, this is the stuff you missed, and identifying those errors, like that stuff I genuinely believe is happening, and the opportunity for growth and progression, I think is there, and that's what the sport really needs.
I agree completely. However, you do remember the assistant refs were not great. The replacement refs, that was not a situation we want to be in again anytime soon. But if you are a ref, yes, you do not want Sandra Schwartz telling you how great a game you had, and you don't want Matt Miazga delivering you a pizza. Those are two things you want to keep clean off of what you do.
Totally agree. Matt Miazga.
Last game I want to talk about is the Sporting KC RSL match. Sporting KC and RSL drew 1-1, 0.7 XG for Sporting KC, 1.28 XG for RSL. A couple notes that I had here. RSL checker jerseys are great. They're really nice. I criticized the hell out of them, and I was 100% wrong. And this is like the match of the best and the worst. Like, I hated these jerseys, but I think they're really nice. It's also because Argyle is so awful in a soccer kit, and Sporting KC, it is as bad as I said it always was.
I don't hate the Argyle as a principle thing. Some of the Argyle kits I think have been incredible. But I think it's one of those things that if you miss on it, there's not going to be a middle ground. You're not going to have like an okay Argyle kit. Like Argyle kits are going to be awesome or terrible. I do agree with Angus there. Refs do need to have post-match conferences. Like you need more. The refs are smart people. You need to hear them talk. That is an important thing. Anyway, no Argyle kits.
Speaking of
the checker kit, the RSL one, I told you it's great.
Speaking of kit change, someone enjoys wearing, the checkerboard more than the Argyle. That is Johnny Russell. Scored a header from Katranis. Katranis also had a big chance miss, but Johnny Russell came over the top on a header. Not someone we know as someone who's going to score with his head very often. He came in like a bull out of China shop. Like you knew he was scoring in this match. Played it classy. Did not celebrate. However, if you're him and you're getting like kind of sold out for Daniel Shallowy and sold for dead just because you hit the an age number, you kind of had to think he was going to have a revenge game here.
Oh yeah, he talked about this publicly, that he had circled this game and that he wanted to win. He wanted to go in. He wanted to prove that he could still do stuff. He wanted to show the team that they were wrong for letting him go. He absolutely had an axe to grind in this game, and scoring in that way, that was a very authoritative header. A lot of power behind it. Absolutely bodies the defender. That is the kind of that's the kind of goal you score when you have something to prove. I do totally respect. I think he makes the right decision not to celebrate. He's got way too much history and stock built up in Kansas City to be disrespectful to the fans.
It's not a team he played for a season or two. No, that was his home.
Yeah, that was his home for like 6 or 7 years. This is all about sending a message to the coaching staff, to the front office, being like, hey, you guys made a bad decision letting me go. Should have kept me. And yeah, honestly, I'm glad he's with RSL. You can, from the moment he showed up, you could see actually the changes in the other players. He is mentoring, he is coaching, he is leading, he is providing experience that the team didn't have. You could see that in players like Xavier Gozo, who is 18. He almost won it right at the end. Had a shot blocked off the line.
Yeah, played really well.
Good defense by the Kansas City defender, but like that's a kid who has grown and progressed even in the course of the season.
The official play on this one was me and Dion. Sporting KC team total over 1.5. I feel like that was going to land. I feel like the ball was kind of rolling in Sporting KC's favor for a little bit until they sub on Jake Davis, who gets 2 yellow cards as a sub. Let me say how incredibly hard it is to get 2 yellow cards as a second half sub. Jake Davis did that, and that kind of killed SKC's possibility. We saw a lot of RSL play at the end. 80th minute, Gonçalves, like a bicycle kicked it right at the goalie. Not a great location, but very, very athletic play.
Very athletic, but honestly not that great a shot.
Fair enough. At that point, I think you're just so happy to get it off your foot.
Yeah, I think you're happy to make good contact, and it's on target, so you've given yourself a chance there. I honestly don't think your team total was like a bad pick. In Kansas City, the way Kansas City has played, I do think a little bit of that new manager bump is maybe behind them. I think now we're settling back into, okay, These are the guys that we had, and some of the things haven't changed. And okay, it's a new message, and we're doing some things differently now, and that helps us. But you're not working with radically different tools here, and so maybe some of Kansas City scoring, as I won't say freely, but scoring as often as they had been doing for a bit, that might slow down just a little bit.
I agree there. But only time will tell. And the cool part is we still have 13 weeks in Major League Soccer to do it. The season is going to be long. We have a single Saturday match day this week, a lot of soccer in between, Leagues Cup, CONCACAF, all that great stuff, culminating in the Club World Cup final, which is going to be Sunday, the day after the 4th of July. That's going to be really fun, and we're going to be here talking about it a little bit. We have picks for the weekend. That show is coming up on Thursday at 8 o'clock. Check your calendar. It might be out a little earlier, but you can definitely watch it by 8 o'clock. And, guys, have a wonderful week out there. Welcome back. Next week, We have 2 games, Wednesday, Friday. Again, hopefully we'll be up another 16 units. The only way you're going to find out, and that's by giving us that subscribe, hitting that like button, and becoming part of the I-80 Sports Designated Pundits family. Thank you, guys. Scott, have a great weekend, and I'll catch you real soon.